Welcome back to Bunny Banter, first time podcast for everything Killer Bunnies. I'm your host Matt, here with co-host Mikey.
Hello.
And as a guest today, we have Jazz.
Hi.
Jazz was one of the best players in the first Killer Bunnies tournament. A very impressive score in finals with 29 out of 68 cards in a 4-player game. That's almost half of them.
Got pretty lucky with the carrots, not so much with the final draw, to be honest.
Right, I think it was the player with the least amount that got you.
Indeed.
Usually how it works, isn't it? But yes, we have an expert among us. All right. What are we talking about today,
call
Mikey?
back to last week.
Oh,
Today,
yes.
Today we are talking about more about Cake Batter.
Yay, Cake Batter. So today we're finishing up. This is the final episode for discussing Cake Batter cards. Unless we go back and talk about the cards that now have extra effects in the previous boosters. I don't know when/if we'll do that. They're all pretty irrelevant. Spoilers. We don't care about Queen to Queen's level 3 irrelevant rule now applying. But maybe we'll do a separate episode for that. I don't know yet. I haven't decided. But yes, these are the last cards from Cake Batter. And the ones we have left are primarily what I like to call the filler cards for the new mechanic. So we have all of the new cards that reference the atomic pastries. That's exciting because atomic pastries are exciting. So hopefully the cards themselves will be good. They might not be, some of them, but even if they're not, as was discussed last episode, for a fundamental mechanic to be relevant, either the mechanic itself must be relevant, or the cards supporting it must be relevant. So we already think the mechanic itself is relevant. So whatever we get here, honestly, it's just a bonus.
So before we begin, I have a confession to make. I did not listen to the podcast where you talked about atomic pastries.
We should discuss what they do then.
Yes, we should, because I have no idea.
All right.
Oh.
So I'll do that quickly then. That's a good idea anyways. So there are 10 atomic pastries in Cake Batter. There's 5 different types, 2 of each type. They are specials, so you can save them. And what you do with them is once you get 2 of them, you can place both of them underneath a bunny. And then that bunny, those atomic pastries will react together and cause an explosion. If they're matching atomic pastries, the explosion will be roll higher than 10 on the target and 8 on the adjacent. If they're not matching, which is probably the majority of cases in the full set, it will be 5, 4, 4. And that's a roll on the brown die. That's what atomic pastries do. Very exciting that they're specials, that you can save them. That's very important. Otherwise, they would not be relevant. We have the oyster cracker problem at that point, where the bunny's going to die before anything happens. If only oyster crackers were the same special. That was the solution, to save Undergrounds. Too late now. All right. Okay. So that's atomic pastries.
I do have one question.
Yes.
Do we get the brown pawn with Cake Batter?
Yes, we also get the brown pawn. We haven't discussed that too much, but we did discuss last episode the honey hash browns, which is the new brown pea card. But yes, with the atomic pastries, that's relevant as well because they all roll the brown die, so maybe that brown reroll is important. Who knows?
Bit more use for it than just 1 or 2 P cards then.
Right. I think brown rolls more than pink at this point, so there's that.
Not a meme pawn confirmed.
Second meme pawn, so you don't upset the meme player. There you go. Okay, but before we get into those filler cards, we have a few more cards that don't require much discussion, just so for the sake that we show all the cards. We'll even show the uninteresting ones. So here we go. That's the wrong one. I knew I'd mess it up. I pulled up the wrong card. I pulled it up an oyster cracker. We'll pretend that was intentional. Irrelevant cards, oyster cracker. Why would I pretend that was intentional? It was a joke. All right. The actual cards we're talking about today are we have a choose a carrot card. Amazing. Every expansion's gotta have those. We have a choose 2 carrots. Cool. You know, nothing much to say. If anyone wants to comment on the artwork, interrupt me. All right.
Pretty.
I'm a fan of it.
Oh yeah, it is. I always like how all of these choose the carrots are unique, and this one's pretty nice. Where it has the carrots is actually a cake, so that's actually really cool.
I wonder if it's carrot cake.
I don't know. To be
Yeah,
determined.
It looks vanilla.
It must be carrot cake, otherwise how would it be worth a carrot? That means we chopped
2
up
carrots,
Flo.
in fact.
Which 2 carrots got chopped up into a cake? This got very dark. We have a couple feed the bunnies. Nothing exciting here. It's just a feed the bunny 1-2 fresh milk. Interesting artwork. It's probably a reference to something. I don't know the reference. And then we got a feed the bunny 4-3.
No.
4 ration milk. Also looks like a reference, but again, I'm not the reference guy. Go ahead and find the reference. All right. Maybe it's a movie reference, and then you can use bunnies on film to get back this feed the bunny 4-3.
People are yelling at their podcast players what the references are right now.
For sure.
How do you know?
I am not cultured. Mikey is more of a reference guy than me. Mikey, do you know the reference?
No.
No. If Mikey doesn't know it, I for sure don't know it. All right, let's get to the real cards. I like real cards. Cards that do things. First one today, Bunny Way. It is a aggressive run card that is a atomic pastry modifier. Okay. So it says may be placed under any atomic pastry, smothering it in chocolate and neutralizing its detonation capabilities. So it's important to note that this can be used against saved atomic pastries as well, not just the pastries in play. Otherwise, it'd be quite useless, wouldn't it? But yeah, what do you think, Mikey?
Well, the first thing that I take issue with is I'm not necessarily sure what the title of the card or the name of the card has to do with the interaction. I the only thing I can think of when I think of Way is Little Miss Muffet. But anyway, besides that, this is cool. You know, you were talking about earlier whether or not atomic pastries are going to necessarily be relevant or not. And I think I wouldn't necessarily mind having this played on me because if you have a saved atomic pastry, you can't do anything with it anyway until you get another one. So I don't know. For me, I just feel like I wouldn't be losing much. I would probably forget about it anyway. And what's the likelihood that you're going to find another one? That you personally are going to find another one throughout the time of the game. So I think I wouldn't personally mind having this played on me, and I wouldn't mind playing it on someone else because, especially in a 2-player. Well, actually, you wouldn't want to play this in play an atomic pastry in a 2-player game. That kind of makes it somewhat irrelevant. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't mind playing it on someone else because then I don't risk getting blown up.
I can see it. What do you think, Jazz?
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly. It's a pretty innocuous card. I think there is some use to it though, especially with the fact that 2 different atomic pastries non-matching can be combined for a half explosion. And as you said, that's probably 9 times out of 10 how an atomic pastry is going to happen. So when you get into a 3-player game, a 4-player game, or even more, you will start to see atomic pastries, building up. And if you're worried about a potential alliance between other players against you, especially if you're being a bit aggressive, I think it's a way to sort of quiet it down, smother it down without doing anything that's really going to anger anyone too much. You're not killing a bunny. You're not really taking anything too important from someone, but you are sort of stopping someone from attacking you potentially. I think also if you're extremely passive, it's a great little card to play on yourself.
I suppose. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Yeah, I think this is a lower value card on average, which therefore it does fit within passive, neutral, somewhere in there. Maybe neutral if you already have two and they're just kind of threatening you. I suppose then that kind of becomes more neutral if they actually draw the second one. Um, I'm going to make a heretical comparison here. This card
Ooh.
reminds me of Strawberry Fields, which is a which is the card from Onyx that changes the prune Danish into a strawberry tart.
Huh?
It kind of reminds me of that. I don't like making that comparison because, of course, atomic pastries are probably more relevant than prune Danishes. But where I take that comparison is Strawberry Fields is non-aggressive and this one is aggressive. And I feel bad spending my turn on Bunny Way with it being aggressive. If it was non-aggressive, I would love to draw this card because then it'd be like, I don't need to play a bunny this turn, sort of idea.
Mhm.
Because in many groups, having a bunny out is just a bad idea. The longer you can wait, the better. So when I'm in that sort of meta, which I often am, I love to have non-aggressive cards like free cabbage to play on turn one, or if I want something a bit higher value, free pawn, or something like that. Bunny Way obviously is not turn one play, but the comparison still exists after the board has been cleared and there's no bunnies in play. It's still sort of like that turn one setting, where it's like I wish this was non-aggressive so that I could actually run it through and play it without a bunny. Spending the turn where I have a bunny, I feel like those turns are a bit more valuable on average, and I want to be doing something more relevant. So that's why I'm I like the effect. But I don't like that it's aggressive.
Yeah.
If I was to place in my tier list that I've started to make, I've started to refer to cards in tiers, which is not to say that a F tier card is absolutely worthless, because that just means that it only exists in passive strategy. The tier list actually defines what strategies can use this card. If you're playing really aggressive, you usually want that S tier to A tier range. If you're playing neutral aggressive, you usually want that B to A, and so on and so on. You can go back and forth. This feels like a passive card. This feels kind of like a D tier right now, where I can use it in passive, I can use it in passive neutral. Anything beyond that's pushing it, which is okay. Every deck needs its irrelevant cards, but I think this card is perhaps carried by the fact that atomic pastries themselves are probably good. So when this card does what it's supposed to do, I think it's good. I just don't anticipate that happening very often. And I don't like spending a whole turn on it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll rank it out. There you go. I'll rank it out. That's the option. Because I think normally you'd save a pastry for eliminating something as important as a rank. So if I have a rank, that makes it easier to play this card, and it also makes it easier to defend my rank. So synergy. I suppose synergy with Freight Train. There you go. I don't know how I went from this is a passive neutral card to hey, it has synergy with Freight Train, but that shows you why the tier list is actually irrelevant, because different situations apply very differently. And sometimes you just need to eliminate that pastry just in case. But who knows? We will see. Let's move on to the next card. Fallen Souffle. Another aggressive run card. This one I don't mind being aggressive. Because the pastries themselves are aggressive, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Yes. Okay, so that doesn't matter. This being aggressive makes perfect sense. And what it does, it says may be used once by a player to cause any 2 atomic pastries under a single bunny to explode at full force. So the idea is if you have 2 non-matching pastries, you place them under the bunny, and then you choose not to explode them because that is an option you have with the non-matching in case you really want to wait for a matching one, or if you want to play Fallen Souffle. So any 2 non-matching pastries can now explode at the full force of 10, 8, 8, which is twice the amount of what you normally get. What do you think, Jazz?
Yeah, no, I think this is an interesting card. And I like this one a lot because when the second non-matching atomic pastry is going to be placed under another bunny, two things are either going to happen. One, you're either just going to explode it. And if you don't explode it, immediately your player is going to be thinking, does he have fallen souffle? Why on earth is he not exploding it? Either he's got fallen souffle, or maybe he's got a matching atomic pastry that's coming through the run. And it would definitely put them a bit on the defensive and make them a bit nervous, whether you have fallen souffle or not. Because, I mean, as we've said, there's 10 atomic pastries in the entire deck. It's going to be pretty uncommon to have two matching ones that you can get in a short enough time span to actually explode under a bunny. So this sort of adds another element to it that I think it can honestly be a pretty interesting bluff almost to not have fallen souffle and put a second one and not explode it, to sort of make the other player constantly sort of fear for their bunny's life.
That's an interesting bluff idea. I actually kind of like that, where you preemptively play the pastry, which is probably a rare thing to do, and then you have a cake batter card as your top run. You're like, haha, or a cake batter card in your hand. You're like, haha, I have something planned, and then they take the bait and they play something like top run rotate. And if they play top run rotate, they get the fallen souffle, which is no good to them. So it's kind of an interesting bluff. I kind of like that. What do you think, Mikey?
I had a thought. What? Oh, one thought. I think this would have been a nice card to have as a special or a very special. And here's my thoughts behind it. One, let's say you get this card. Let's just say, well, this is going for specials here. I don't know. I feel like I would like to save this card. Because I wouldn't want it sitting in my hand the entire time. But I would also like to keep it in case I had, in case I ended up getting 2 atomic pastries. Or this kind of plays it, if you have it as a save special or even a very special. I would like to use this card in the context if I'm in a multiplayer game, more than 2 people, and say my opponent lays a card or 2 atomic pastries under the bunny of an aggressive mega superpower kind of guy, like Matt. And maybe this person is being very overbearing in the game, and I have this fallen souffle, and this would just be the perfect time because I don't have any atomic pastries saved, and maybe it's toward the end of the game and I'm not going to get any more, but I have this card. That would be, I would love to be able to help out my fellow player and give that card then the full force, or the atomic pastries the full force. I think that would have been a nice interaction. I like the way it. I mean, I like the idea of this card. I think it's kind of a fun little trick. You put the 2 different atomic pastries on, and they think they're okay, and then you pull out this thing, and it's like, oh, looky there. Yeah, so I like this card, but I think I would have liked it better. I think maybe not as so much as a special, but as a very special.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I do agree. It's the kind of card you could end up accidentally having in your hands the whole game, and suddenly the last card's being drawn, and you haven't done anything with it.
Now, there's an interesting point to that, where we talked about this in Cake Batter episode 1, where if you're holding a cake batter card in your hand, they will think it's Path to Perfection. Just so that you're trying to assemble full absolution combo. So they'll be scared of you if you're holding your hand the entire game. There's something to that. Maybe if they're paying attention, that strategy only works in very serious groups that are good at hand tracking, where it's like, yeah, they've had that cake batter card in their hand for the past 20 turns. I think it's time for me to try to get rid of it with my I don't know, Scarlet Letter card or something weird like that. So there's something to that, where if it does end up in your hand, that might not be a bad thing. Unironically. But yes, I actually had the exact same thought as Mikey there when I first saw this card is, why isn't this a very special? Which goes to show you that this is perhaps something that newer players don't appreciate as much, the strength of being able to do things at instant speed. Especially with various specials, or the strength of being able to save tempo with specials. It's actually a huge deal. That's why atomic pastries are going to be relevant, while oyster crackers were not. Oyster crackers, you had to commit to them, and once you commit, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Atomic pastries, you can save them until the right time. Very specials, you don't even have to let your opponent know you have them. You can just hold them in your hand the whole time until they become relevant, and hidden information is just huge. Fallen Souffle being a run card means you have to commit to it at a certain time. So, say there's a rank in play and you really want to make sure that it's dead, along with two other bunnies that are probably next to it. You could save your atomic pastries, and they're probably wondering why you're not playing them, because now's a good time. And then you run through your Fallen Souffle, and finally you get to double the strength of atomic pastries, which is good, but that's 2 turns of waiting. Or 1 turn if you have a triplet, or technically 0 turns if you have the rank, but if you have the rank, then there's no problem. Right? Then the pastry isn't needed. You're already ahead. But you see the conundrum here, where within that, even that
Calcite
1
conundrum?
turn, yeah, calcite conundrum, yeah, it's still 1 turn. Calcite's even more difficult to commit. But you see the problem, where you have to wait a turn before you commit, and then anything could happen during that turn. The opponent could draw Misfortune, another player could kill the bunny, they could kill your bunny, and all of a sudden you can't do it, and you missed your window of opportunity. So many things can happen that I have a hard time picturing Fallen Souffle seeing much play, because anytime I try to do it, I'm immediately picturing all the things that could go wrong. It's like, do I actually have the bunnies to be able to support waiting a turn, or is it that important to kill this threat that I need to kill it now? I mean, imagine if it was a pink lethal, and waiting a turn means you're giving your opponent an extra $5. So do you go for the 5/4/4 thinking that you'll kill it on 5, which is technically unlikely? It's under a 50% chance that you kill it, or do you wait a turn, give them an extra 5 guaranteed, and then you get the 10/8/8, which still isn't guaranteed, but it's better. I don't know what I decide there. It's difficult. It's very difficult. It really depends on so many different variables that I don't know. It's one of those cards that when I look at it, I see the value, but it's so specific. And sometimes you can just win games on specific cases. It's the fundamental philosophy of playing min-max aggressive, where I'm going to use every card to its full potential. And if I'm not using it to its full potential, then it feels really bad. This is one of those cards that, when used to its full potential, is actually quite good, but you do have to hold in your hand for an unknown amount of turns, which feels painful, but maybe you have the hand that can support it, maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been playing min-max aggressive a lot recently in my groups, so I'm excited about it. To use in that context, I also can see it in a passive neutral context. I see a lot of cake batter cards in passive neutral context, so that's kind of exciting, because that strategy works in all groups usually. So I also see in that context working pretty well, because in that context you're likely to have a bunny alive. Not many people are attacking you, so that's good. And then maybe this is the big transition card, or maybe this is the big salvation card of, oh, this opponent got ahead, let's equalize that. Perfect. Make sure to commit it at that point, and then it's fine. And it's pretty good in that context. So I think this is actually one of the weaker ones we're talking about today. And
Mhm.
I think it's pretty decent, honestly. It has its place, unlike a lot of the cards from the Onyx booster or a lot of the cards from London booster. They do not have their place. This one does. I can see it. All right, let's move on. Next card is an aggressive run card. I'm probably going to butcher the name here. Hungry Kalong? I don't know how to pronounce the
That's
second
how I've
word.
been thinking of it.
I don't know what creature that is. I've never heard of
Well,
this thing.
I have to say I looked it up, and it's like a little bat, and it looks both murderous and kind of cute. So I recommend everyone go look at it. Unless you're driving a car or something, you should look it up.
There you
Looks
go.
kind of cute.
All right, but what does the card do?
Yeah.
Mikey's looking up.
That
Perfect.
was
Mikey can give us
It looks
the.
like it could kill you and also cuddle you. It's very interesting.
And he's holding a butcher's cleaver in the Killer Bunnies picture, so that's kind of scary. But I think
Yeah.
I think based on the card text, he's just looking for a snack. He's hungry, and the card text says maybe use once by a player to remove any 3 atomic pastry cards saved or under a bunny. I think it's relatively safe to say that the most of the time you'll be using this against saved atomic pastries, because how frequently are atomic pastries going to be played preemptively? I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. You got the previous card Fallen Souffle, but even then, you could just play those pastries on the same turn as you're playing the souffle. So I still don't see it. But
I think that comes down to a lot to how groups play the game. Is I think if you're going to have a group that plays a bit like a party game, they probably are going to be pulling out the atomic pastries and putting them right under bunnies as they come out. Probably not saving them as much. For groups that this is a game that they play often, who know the insides and outs of it, they're probably going to be saving the atomic pastries, waiting their time to use them at the right time. But I do think for people who play this a bit more like a party game, that this might be a bit more relevant for the pastries under under their bunnies, because I think a lot of people will just be going, run the card through. Here's my pastry. You stick it under. Kind
right,
of thing.
they might not even read that it's a special card. That's kind of the scenario I'm picturing. I showed the atomic pastries to my friend Gabe, and it's just to show him the new fundamental mechanic of the booster, and he read through it right away, and he didn't look at the top, and I was like, "What's the purpose of that?" I point out to him that's a special, and he's like, "Oh wow, that's really good," because he didn't read the card. He didn't read the top first. He read the card text, and he didn't realize that it was a special card. So I see that happening a lot. But also besides that, let's give something to the serious group as well for that concept, because I thought of something. There's a lot of cards that attack safe specials in the deck currently. You have the classics like Church Bunny, but you also have more recent ones like Freaking Moron and Blake Take. That was fantastic in Caramel, if I remember correctly. I think I named them in reverse, but I was picturing the right ones for reference. uh, so there's that too. Maybe you play it preemptively in the sense that maybe you are pretty sure that your opponent has Blake Take coming, and you're like, no, I don't want my pastry lost. I'm going to play it. That's something. It's a rare scenario, but something. But anyways, removing 3 atomic pastry cards, saved or under bunny. What do you think, Mikey?
I wonder why they chose 3. Obviously 2. If somebody has 2 atomic pastries saved, you want to get rid of those.
Right.
Why do
Right.
they have 2 atomic pastries saved? That's a good question. Why didn't they play them? But I don't know. I think it's interesting. I suppose the scenario that I'm seeing is there are 3 different players. You're in a game with more than 3 players, and there are 3 different players who each have 1 atomic pastry. And you clear them all off the board, and then they can't trade for them or anything like that. But I don't know. This just doesn't seem that profound to me. It doesn't. I would see this card and I would think, eh. And I would probably not be very happy because it was just cluttering up my hand. And if nobody has an atomic pastry, then this is a useless card. And it just literally is cluttering up your hand. You can't even use it. It's not relevant. And I don't want to hold on to this for the entire game. So I don't know. I'm not too impressed with this card.
I can see it. I was actually picturing the exact same scenario that you were, with 3 players have 1. Something interesting to note here, maybe there's a bit of inconsistency here on your part, Mike, is I'm going to call you out. Uh-oh. Isn't this just 3 times better than Bunny Way?
Interesting.
Well, that's a good question. I suppose, but I think the fact that it is 3 times stronger,
Maybe 1 is already sufficient is kind of the idea.
I think 1 is sufficient, because I'm just trying to think, with thousands of cards in the deck, how many atomic pastries are there?
10.
10.
So with over 1,000 cards in a deck, and you only have 10 pastries, I'm gonna be generous. And say I'm gonna say that you could probably get about, on average, might see 2 atomic pastries per game.
That's about what I calculated.
So then this card, I mean, the likelihood that it's ever going to reach its full potential is not that big. And also, I never really play in games that have much more than 3 people in it. Sometimes we play in 4-player games. I've done 5, but most of the time it's 2 or 3. And so by the time your opponent has collected 2 of these, they're already going to have put it on you in a 2-player game. And so then this card just becomes useless. Whereas Bunny Way, it's like, oh, I'm in a 2-player game, and he has the 1 atomic pastry. I'm going to lay this on him because I know for sure that I can get rid of it. And I'm not wasting the card.
So then,
Whereas,
in a sense, it's the trap of, I want to get this card to its full potential when the full potential probably isn't actually good, and you maybe should just use it for 1. Is that the idea?
yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
I can
Yeah,
see
it's
it.
interesting that you say that. But here, what I'd written down beforehand was essentially 99% of the time this just gets rid of all atomic pastries, because I think most of the time what's going to happen. So then I hadn't even noticed the how similar it was to Bunny Way when you think about it like that. So it makes me sort of wonder why, say, maybe Bunny Way could have been a special, or a very special, and it only gets rid of 1, and then Hungry Kalong could have been that run card, but it does have the benefit of getting rid of 3. But you're right that it really is just sort of a 3 times more powerful Bunny Way with a cuter animal on the front.
It is an interesting interaction. I'm trying to think, and we might get to it, I need to think about the mechanic more, but there may be a mechanical difference between a neutralized pastry versus a discard pastry. Actually, I can think of it right now. I can think of the case right now that's not related to whether it's been neutralized or not. You have cards like Talos 4 from Conquest Violet that lets you swap save specials with an opponent save special. So if you still have the neutralized pastry, it is still worth something in that context.
So I wonder if you could use it in Poverty Poker or something.
Well, can't use specials in Poverty Poker, but yes,
yeah.
that is the idea. I wish you could, honestly, but
Yeah, I forgot that, actually. Right.
yeah, we used to play that way in my first 2 years of playing, but then we realized, hey, specials are left out of that list. That's unfortunate. That makes that card significantly weaker. But yes, that is relevant, right? It has its cases. It's also go with the flow, or is that the reverse direction? I always confuse the direction with that one until I actually look at it. I usually think of it right first, and then I doubt myself. So who knows? But irrelevant save specials have value sometimes. So I suppose that makes Hungry Kalong even stronger. But yes, I do think if your opponent has even 1, I think you should play it, because they're not going to draw 3. Drawing 3 atomic pastries in the game is pushing it. especially for the same person to draw all three. So I think if you eliminate one, you've probably eliminated the threat. That's probably the strat,
And if you haven't, you're just very unlucky.
right? All right. How about we move on to the next card? Now this is a very interesting one. It's a sleeper one where the inexperienced player wouldn't realize the value right away. So it's a non-aggressive run card. Hey, a non-aggressive card that makes it already pretty good, right? Because you don't need a
Yay.
bunny to play it. You always gotta watch out for those non-aggressive cards if they do something relevant. This one may be used once by a player to take and save any atomic pastry, singular, in the top 20 cards of the draw pile. Now, I think atomic pastry being singular doesn't matter, right? Because you're not likely to find more than one anyways. I think you can find between 0 and 1 on average. More likely 0. But what's important here is you get to look at the top 20 cards. So you know what's coming for the next 20 turns. And maybe you can plan your turns accordingly. You know, it's kind of like a poor man's MI6 in that sense. What do you think about that, Jazz?
Yeah, no, I've written down MI6 here as a card. It's like, but I think another card it's a lot like is Elephant and Castle, which allows you to look at the top 50 run cards instead of the draw pile. But it has, I guess, has a barrier to entry because you have to roll the dice. So this has no barrier to entry. It's not aggressive, and I agree. You're probably not going to find an atomic pastry up there, and I think it is just sort of an excuse to see what's coming and look at the top run cards. You know, you might get lucky, you might pull one, but you're probably not going to. But I think it's probably a pretty useful card to hold on to. It's the kind of card I'd probably want to hold for a bit until I don't have a bunny, if it's a sort of aggressive game. But if I don't need a bunny to run it, and then it can give me an idea of what's coming up. You know, there's 10 bunnies coming up, I'll be fine. Or there's no bunnies coming up, I need to think of something to do. And especially if you know, it's going to be hard to plan your game around the cards coming up. You know, you're not going to purposely not play a rank to try to get $20 or something. It's just too much happens to make it unlikely to make it that useful to see exactly what's coming up. But if you're an experienced player, just to say, hey, there's these 3 cards which are pretty powerful coming up, and hey, this guy has a card from Creature Feature, I'm gonna keep an eye on where that ended up. It is useful, but as far as actually gathering up atomic pastries, I can't see it being used that much.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you get the atomic pastry off of this card feels really amazing because all of a sudden, then essentially for 0 tempo, you got to look at the top 20 cards of the draw pile because the 1 tempo was the saving the atomic pastry. So that's a big deal. Yeah, it compares very favorably to Elephant and Castle. That die roll barrier on Elephant and Castle is absolutely horrendous. What do you think, Mikey?
Well, you know, when I first read it, I thought, well, this is a dumb card. Wish not getting very many good cards at all in this episode. But when you mentioned that, oh yeah, you get to look at the top 20 cards in the draw pile. That's nice. Feels bad if you realize that your opponent's going to get something really amazing. But also feels good because then you can prepare for the wrath of Matthew Lane.
No, it seems to be my wrath.
So
I haven't even played Freight Train for months.
all I remember is I was just keep thinking about this time when we went to your dorm and we were playing in the lounge and you had like 1 million bunnies spread out and I had 1 and I was just struggling with rats pretty much. It was horrible. So that's what I think of every time I think of a 2-player game. I always think of that. So so yeah, this is nice. There's not much more to be said than what's already been said, but yeah, it's a nice card. Well done, Jeff.
There you go. It's pretty good. Looking at top 20 cards, Jazz mentioned that no, you're not going to skip a rank to make sure that it comes out right. You might not do that, but what I've frequently seen done with things like MI6 is you might discard a very special at an opportune moment to make sure that you get the card you want. That's pretty good. You know, if you look through the 20 cards and you see one that you want, maybe it's Ice 9, maybe it's Path to Perfection. If you see one, watch until that Cake Better card comes up and then be like, oh yeah, I'll just discard my Tube Delay at this point. Sure, you have to hold Tube Delay in your hand for 15 turns, but you're getting a really good card. So Run by Fruiting combined with one very special card essentially allows you to choose any card out of the 20 cards to draw. That's pretty good.
That's really good.
Tube Delay is all of a sudden good. No.
Yay!
Oh yeah, I'm excited about that one. Big deal that it's non-aggressive. And if you ever get that atomic pastry off of it, wow, it feels good. And we will get more pastries in the future, by the way. That has been confirmed. I'm not sure when. There will be more types, and we do have the promo one as well. So that's 11 right now if you play with the promos. But card that gets more and more relevant. But even without it, relevant. Love it. Yeah, love to see it. All right, moving on. We have an aggressive run card, Smorgasbord. It is once by a player to take one saved atomic pastry from each opponent. All atomic pastry must remain saved for one round of play. So this is perfect in the scenario that Mikey was thinking of earlier, where all opponents only have one. It's like, oh, they're pretty split between the opponents right now. Let's take one from each, and all of a sudden, I have this big threat saved up for next round. You know, I have to save it for one round, but is that actually a problem? I don't know. What do you think, Jazz?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a huge problem. I think it's going to be a good card to have. And what I think it's going to be it's not going to be difficult to hold them for one round of play, unless some players have some really big tricks up their sleeves. So I think it's going to be a pretty powerful card. Now the only thing is, how many atomic pastries are going to be out and sitting about is the real question.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a lot, great, go for it. But most scenarios I can think of, there's going to be one, two, maybe three if it's kind of really unusual, sitting about to grab, as we mentioned before. But I think most of the time it's just you're going to be grabbing one atomic pastry with this card, and so be it. It's still useful to have one.
Right. Yeah. If you get two, that's amazing. All of a sudden, you've stolen a big threat. Well, relevant threat. You know, atomic pastries are kind of at that perfect threshold where it's I don't want to play a nuclear warhead, but I don't want to play a kitchen whisk. I want the 5-4-4. That's actually the exact point where I want it. You know, in certain groups. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one. What do you think, Mikey?
Well, first I have to comment on the artwork and the title. At first I was thinking, well, this should be called Smorgasbord because of the Swedish chefs, you know, his famous Bork. But then I looked at the artwork and I thought, oh, that makes sense. And so Jonathan, I don't know if you listen to our podcast. I know Jeff does. So Jeff, if Jonathan doesn't listen, you tell him this, that I think that this is just an amazing artwork. And I think it is so cool. It fits so well with the name Smorgasbord, like cyborg. It reminds me, and I wonder if maybe this was his inspiration. I don't know, but there's in Star Trek: The Next Generation, one of the movies where Jean-Luc Picard becomes a cyborg, and that scared the heck out of me when I was a little kid. But it reminds me of that, and it's just so cool. I just love this artwork. And so now, that being said, the actual card, like Jazz said, you know, what's the likelihood that you're really gonna get many pastries? I think that this card unfortunately, is probably going to be a card that stays in your hand for a long time and is probably useless. Sometimes, like Jazz said, if you more than likely when you are able to use it, you're going to get one card. But I thought of a really fun scenario. So back to when we were talking about Hungry Kalong or whatever you say that. You're in a scenario, say you're in a 4-player game, and I have an atomic pastry. Jazz has an atomic pastry. We'll bring Frank in from our rooms. Frank has an atomic pastry, and they're all saved. And Matthew doesn't, but he gets smorgasbord.
I'm pretty happy.
And yeah, you are. You play that, but now I have Hungry Kalong,
Oh no.
and I've been like looking for an excuse to use this. Well, Matthew gets all 3 of those atomic pastries and he saves them. Feels really good for me and really bad for Matthew now because now I can play Hungry Kalong and then Matthew loses all those atomic pastries that
No.
he just did, and his turn was worthless.
My memes. I can see it. I suppose the one round to play is therefore irrelevant because somebody could be holding Hungry Kalong in their hand and rank it out or something like that. It's not. It's not. It's fairly possible. You know that could happen.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. But I'm excited about this one. I feel like on average, so independently, this card is probably stronger than Hungry Kalong. There's that. That's relevant. And thereby therefore stronger than Bunny Way. I guess we have these cards in a good order. Just like, oh yeah, this is power creep of this one. This one's power creep of this one. Usually we get power creep going from expansion to expansion, but here the power creep within the expansion itself. Haha. I suppose somewhat. It's not quite accurate to say that because always the weakness of stealing things is that they can always be stolen back.
Mhm.
Also, if your opponent has a law enforcement bunny, it's been a while since I mentioned them. Ever since I realized that they can't protect your bunnies from being stolen, law enforcement have felt much less relevant. But hey, it protects against smorgasbord, so there you go. There's a scenario where Hungry Kalong is better. Sure, okay, I guess I don't know, but I think it's perfect in the group that doesn't want to trade their atomic pastries, and we'll find out how often it is that atomic pastries get traded so that players can cooperate and attack the player who's ahead. Maybe that doesn't happen. You know, it's kind of like the Monopoly situation where it's like, do you want to trade Monopoly for Monopoly? No, I don't want to do that. And it's like, okay, then we're not going to get anywhere. I can't believe I just made a Monopoly comparison of all things on Bunny Mancer. Forgive me, Jeff, for that game has no strategy whatsoever. But it's kind of that. You know, that situation might happen with atomic pastries, and if it does, smorgasbord is just like, no, I'm in control. Haha, you should have traded while you had the chance. But I think players will trade. At least experienced groups will cooperate with the pastries. I think you have to. If you don't, it's just not going to work out. The group that Jazz was talking about, who treat it more like a party game, I suppose it doesn't matter for that group because they're playing the pastries preemptively anyways, right? So
Yeah,
so there
that'll
you
be
go.
that'll be more relevant in a couple cards from now as
Right.
well.
Hey, another reason to play them preemptively. Play around Smorgasbord. There you go. I suppose that's another situation where, hey, well done, Jeff, on the balance. This card is independently stronger, but then there's ways you can play around it that make it weaker with the law enforcement or just preemptively playing them. There you go. It matters. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next one. And this is kind of a feels bad one because often we get cards that reference future mechanics and we only get a small part of the card being relevant right now, but we still have it, and we're still going to show it. It's an aggressive run card called Vowel Movement.
Oof.
Interesting name. Kind of a brown gradient on the back of the card, so clearly intentional. The card reads, maybe use one Spire player who owns the most carrots with vowel letters, so Athena, Eunice, all those, to take any one Bunderground station, saved atomic pastry, and those are the two things that we have so far. The rest of it comes out later. Relative, saved alien ship, and meta bunny. So right now, this card exclusively steals an atomic pastry and the Bunderground station with the condition that you need to have specific carrots. Relatives won't matter for 2 years. Saved alien ships for 4 years. Meta bunny in 6 years. Rough estimates. What do you think about that, Mikey?
I don't know. Honestly, don't think it's a very good card right now. I think once we get relatives, alien ships, and meta bunnies, it's probably going to be better. But then by that time, you're also going to have added a bunch more cards to the deck, and it's going to be hard to find this one. But despite that, if you were to get this one now, as we know, Undercrowns have not been as successful as maybe we thought they were going to be. As I talked about last episode with the exploding cell phones. So, and also as we have talked about, oh no, it's saved. Okay. I thought I read it wrong. No. Okay. Also, as we talked about with atomic pastries, we're gonna more probably on average see an average of 2 per game. And are they going to be out at the same time? And are they going to be out at the same time you get this card? Who knows? So right now, I think this is very weak. This is another one of those cards that I would just want to get rid of in my deck, or in my hand, unless somebody had one of these things. I would take it. I mean, take free things. That's nice. But yeah, until we get relatives, alien ships, and meta bunnies, I think that this card is kind of not very relevant at the moment.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Honestly, when I first read it, I thought my brain broke. I don't think there's ever been so many future mechanics on one card. I was like, have I missed all of this somehow? Well, I do agree that it's not going to be that useful, but I'm excited to see how it becomes useful going forward, especially because we don't really know how, alien ships, meta bunnies, how they're really going to work. So, if they're very powerful, there's very few of them. Suddenly this becomes a much more powerful card than we thought it was. Now the question becomes, in most groups, I think that play fairly seriously, it's sort of flip over the top carrot and you keep it. There's no real rooting around for the carrots. It's sort of a waste of time. Although that changes depending, and a lot of people you'll find do want to get Flo early on, Anthony early on, Tucker early on, just for the one or two cards that happen to reference them or their feeding capabilities. So now the question will obviously become, will the sort of people who like to search around for those carrots, will they start to search around for Val carrots? Will they want to get Val carrots as early as possible in the off chance that they'll be able to get this? Right now, my thought is probably no. I don't think it's worth it. But as these mechanics, alien ships, relatives, and meta bunnies start to become introduced, maybe it will be more worth it to sort of look around and try to get specific carrots, so that in the off chance that you do get this card, it does become more useful. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that.
I could see it, but in my groups, it's not going to be strategically viable, because if you're, choosing random carrots tends to be a common courtesy thing when it's not actually enforced, of course, because that would be a house rule then, and we don't do those here. So the reason it's common courtesy is to save time, and when you don't save time and cause a delay of game, that tends to be frowned upon. So
Yeah.
I don't see it happening. But it is worth noting I think this is 2 cards now that reference the lettered carrots from Cake Batter. Vowel Movement and the one revealed last episode, Dr. Shoe, which also vowel carrots are very important for because you have to make the word. Make the biggest word you can. If you have all the vowels, then people aren't going to be making words, are they? You'll win that card guaranteed, I guess. I don't know. Is that worth
That's
something?
true.
I guess it's worth something, but you're not going to be searching through the deck of now 78 carrots to search for the
Oh god.
vowels. I'm not looking there. It'll guarantee be second from the bottom. I'll be starting from the top, and then it's guaranteed to happen. So I'm not choosing random. I'm sticking with random carrots. Besides,
Me too.
besides, the same goes for Path to Perfection, by the way, where you need the square, cube, or penteract. So those carrots also got more strong. Hey, Tucker has 2 relevances now. Haha. Also, just being the best carrot, that's also quite good. But where was I going with that? I was going somewhere. Oh yes. Okay. If you ever do choose a carrot, and I see that you have a Cake Batter card in your hand, I now know exactly which card it is. If you choose Tucker and you're holding a Cake Batter card, I know that you have Path to Perfection. If you choose Athena and you're holding a Cake Batter card, I know that you have Vowel Movement. And as soon as I know about it, it is a significantly weaker card. Because I can play around that however I choose. Path to Perfection less so, because I need to get some hand disruption immediately. But Vowel Movement I can play around very easily. Just preemptively play my pastries, and who cares about the underground? So there's that. I think random carrots is still the strategically best option, and is also the most courteous option, which also makes it strategically best. So there's that. I don't know. To be determined how good this card will be. Right now, it is significantly weaker than Smorgasbord, in the sense that it requires the condition, and in the sense that you only get one. You're probably only getting one anyways. And I suppose this one does have the edge case advantage of not having to wait 1 round to play. Sure, okay. I can see it. Not gonna happen. The underground doesn't matter, of course. We'll see how strong relatives, alien ships, and metabytes are in 2 years.
and do we have clarification on whether Y is a vowel? I know there was some discussion
I
on that in the funny circle.
I believe Y will not count, but we'll have to see the bits.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. We got, how many more do we have left? We got 4 left. Okay, we'll make it. There's more discussion with these than I was expecting. So here we are. We got Y2K-Bug, which is actually a card referenced on one of the very specials from a recent expansion, I think. Maybe there's one from London. I'll have to recheck that, but there's a very special that can counter this, so we'll see how good it is. It rolls all of the 8 dice, and it's an aggressive run card. May be used once by a player to rearrange the positions of any 2 atomic pastry already under bunnies if a 2, 10, 10, and 10 are rolled on any of the dice. Each die may be rolled 3 times. I don't know if there's much to say on this one. I have difficulty picturing the preemptive pastries, especially 2 of them that haven't exploded. Now, if this could take saved pastries and play them, amazing. I could see it. But I don't know. It has the yellow ball red stripe, by the way. So is that.
Where?
Exactly. And that's how
Try to find it.
it's one of those positions on the card where nobody's going to see it unless they know it's
I
there.
see it.
There you go.
No,
But
no.
but you're going to forget it's there, and the next time you have the yellow ball red stripe, you're going to forget, and you're not actually going to do it. But so that I think yellow ball red stripe only benefits experienced players here. So there's that. Yeah. Am I missing something with this one? Is there anything to say? Preemptive pastries?
No, I mean, I think you come into that same thing. It depends a lot on how the group plays, and if they happen to be, I don't know if it's going to be a party game type of thing, but it seems to me playing the pastries as they come, that's the sort of style I'd see that as. And if you are that group and you are playing the pastries preemptively, suddenly this combined with fallen souffle is a nice little combo.
Sure.
Because you're moving stuff around, and suddenly you can explode you, and who would have thought it, kind of thing. And that's exciting and a little bit different. I guess the only time I'm just trying to think, and the only time I could see myself preemptively pastrying is if I have maybe one bunny or two bunnies, and there's a powerful roaming red coming my way, and
That's
I have a
fair.
safe pastry,
Mhm.
and I'm like, maybe if I just put it under this guy, someone else might help me explode them, be it be the roaming red coming towards me or the person who set it off. But
Mhm.
besides for that, I really can't see myself putting a atomic pastry out before I need to.
Right. That's fair. One thing that should be mentioned about this card is actually related to a different card. Feckless Finances. Also coming in Cake Better, very terrifying card that causes all of your money to become worthless until you roll a pair of sevens. This card rolls 8 dice 3 times. You're probably getting a pair of sevens. So there you go. This card is a counter to Feckless Finances. That's worth enough. I don't care. I don't care what the card says. It's not gonna happen. I just want to roll dice. I want to roll my pair of sevens and be done with Feckless Finances because I need that to be gone if that's played on me. So there you go. This card is therefore relevant. And that means the yellow ball with the red stripe is relevant because you could prevent your opponent from rolling the dice. You could make them discard it. I'm like, no!
It's always shocking to me when I'm playing with people who don't play too often how much they miss the yellow ball, the red stripe, even in the most obvious ones
Oh
like
yeah.
reversal of fortune and stuff. So like something like, when we were first discussing this card, you pointed out on the Discord, you pointed out that Viva Las Vegas also has a similarly hidden
Yes.
yellow ball with the red stripe. And I was shocked. I went on to online and I was looking. I was like, where the hell is he? He's just taking the piss, right? And finally, I found this tiny little yellow ball with the red stripe. And I had no idea it was there. So
I would have
I,
never seen that one had it not been in the QCC. I was like, I gotta check that. I have to find it. I searched for I don't know how long, and I eventually found it.
yeah, so even the most obvious one seems to go missed a lot of the time. So something like this, I wonder if it's just I know Jeff has some secret pattern as to
Right.
where the yellow ball and the red stripe is. And I wonder if this is like he doesn't really want this to be a yellow ball with a red stripe card, but he's got to fulfill the pattern, so he just puts in a tiny one.
Right. Well, there's one yellow ball red stripe card that actually has 0 interaction with the yellow ball red stripe, and that's Ultimate Chaos because there are no options. So
Just gotta fulfill the pattern.
so the pattern exists. It's never been discovered, but it's there
I spent
somewhere.
an embarrassingly long time trying to find that one.
I did
I was
too.
like,
I was using
I can figure it out.
I was using Excel and everything. I was plotting everything in graphs, checking the mysterious places connected as well. I couldn't find it.
No, I think in 100 years there'll be a clue at one of the mysterious places saying there was no pattern.
Yeah, Jeff just rolled a die each time to see what random card would be placed on. Oh yeah, but yeah, that's why it's a K-bug. A card in London, I think, counters it, but I don't think it matters. Except for the fact that
Yeah.
you're preventing the rolling of dice if Feckless is in place. So can't wait for that to happen. Because Feckless is a fair and balanced card. All right, moving on. This is a fun one. Aggressive run card. Yes, we have no bananas. That'd be a reference to something.
I think I actually know that reference. I think it's a song, right?
Well, there you go. Good for you.
Now I'm gonna be embarrassed. Yes, it is the song. Okay.
All right, I'll have to
There
look
we
it up
go.
later, and everyone listening can look it up as well. But what the card does is it may be used once by a player and given to any opponents who must give all of his saved atomic pastry to other players. This is actually Pawn Star for pastries. Is that good?
Ooh.
What do you think, Jazz?
I mean, again, I know we've said it a lot with these atomic pastries. How often they'll probably only affect one or two atomic pastries. I think this will be most fun to play in a 2-player game, because you can just give it to your opponent and go, hand them over. It's pretty much a healing mechanic. Because all the other times, what's pretty much going to happen is you're going to say, if you're in a 3-player game or a 4-player game, you're going to say, hey, you got to give away your atomic pastries. You're not giving them to the player who just told you to give them away. You're going to give them to the other player. So, so a lot of the time, it's a bit like, I guess you're just sort of de-arming someone, maybe who's a bit more powerful, rather than taking the weapons yourself. So but again, as we've said before, it's probably only going to move one atomic pastry most of the time.
All right, here's a big brain play for you. We have no bananas, and top run rotate. You give it to the other player. So assume you don't have any. Assume the third opponent does. You give it to the second opponent, and they play on the third opponent, who then gives you the pastries. Big brain plays.
That is big brain.
What do you think, Mikey?
Well, first of all, I know this isn't the reference, but all I could think of when I first saw this card was the VeggieTales sketch with the Englishman who went up the hill and came down with the bananas. You're so selfish.
Pretty
Anyway.
much. That's what it is. It's a giveaway. It's bananas.
But yeah, no. I agree with Jazz. This is the best scenario for this is in a 2-player game. And like also was said, likelihood you're probably only going to get one. Honestly, if you're in a 2-player game, which is the best scenario, you're probably never going to get 2 because they've already laid it on you. Why would you save 2 atomic pastries when you can just play them on someone already? Like I suppose there are some situations where maybe you hate all your opponents and want to find out which one's the worst, but honestly, why would you have 2 saved atomic pastries?
Mm-hmm.
So I think pretty much in 99% of the scenarios where you could actually play this, you will only get 1. So
counter argument. At least for me, I think I'm going to be saving the pastries for when there's something really important to remove, like a rank or a pink lethal. I might use it before then if there's, I don't know, a natural triplet. 5-4-4 against 3 bunnies that form a triplet. That'd be pretty good too. I'd probably wait for that situation. I wouldn't, unless I'm playing Freight Train, which is possible. If you're playing Freight Train, then you're more looking at, hey, 3 players have 1 bunny. Now I'll kill all 3 of them. That's also really good. So in that sense, yeah, you're not saving it. But in the other context, I think you're probably saving it for a relevant amount of time, maybe. Who knows? Hard to say. Game state changes. It's complicated. All right. 2 more cards. Both of them are pink circle specials. I think one of them is a lot spicier than the other, but we got the spicy one first. All right. This is an interesting one. A pink circle very special. Pink circle. Excuse me. Pink circle special. It's very special because it's that good. Maybe. We'll find out. The player with this card saved may play any non-atomic pastry. That is things like prune danishes and chocolate eclairs, or even the mini danish, as an atomic pastry. And then it has the clause, if at any time players no bunnies in the bunny circle, seeking neutrons is discarded, just like every other pink circle special. What do you think, Mikey?
This is a nice card.
Oh yeah.
This changes up the whole thing with with this idea of only getting 2 atomic pastries in a game and things like that. Like, this is nice. I have some questions though. What is the force of impact when you play this? Do you get full force, or is it the 5-4-4?
It'd be the same as, so in theory, if you had 2 prune danishes, you could get matching prune danishes and therefore get the 10-8-8.
Okay.
That'd require
That
2 of
makes
them.
Yeah. Which in some I've had 2 prune danishes even in full sets. So, um okay, that's nice. The other question was, if you have this saved and you get a prune Danish or a chocolate eclair or the mini Danish, and you have those saved, and then you get these cards like Yes We Have No Bananas or all the cards we've talked about in the past, can you play those cards and take those non-atomic pastries that have now been made atomic pastries?
It's an interesting question that I hadn't considered, but I believe no, because Fruit-Seeking Neutrons allows you to play a non-atomic
Okay.
pastry as an atomic pastry, as opposed to actually turning it into one.
Okay.
So it isn't
Okay.
treated as one until you actually play it. So it's safer.
That makes sense. Yeah, it is. You can't get it stolen then. Okay. Yeah. So this is a really nice card. When I first read it, I read it as you can take any card and turn it into atomic pastry. I'm like, wow.
Now that would be spicy.
But that's not the case. But even though that's not the case, this is really nice. This is probably, I think, the best card that we've seen so far.
Wow. For all the episodes, it's just this one.
Just this one. Just this one. Not
I was gonna say, episode 1 had some pretty spicy cards.
It's the best card ever.
Best card. S tier. S tier. What do you think, Jazz?
Yeah, no, I agree. This is a powerful card. It's a bit fun as well. I mean, there's a couple of questions that hopefully the bits will solve, or maybe you'll solve in about 2 seconds. But obviously, with the Danishes, you can have the P card, the Danishes. Does that mean you can have a P card atomic pastry when it explodes? Does it get discarded, or if you have the violet pawn, do you get to use it again? I'm not sure with that.
I don't think the bits will actually say, but safest assumption is that you will get to replay the Danish after it's been resolved.
Yeah.
So if you had 2 prune Danishes and 4 purple pawns, 4 violet pawns. Oh no, I'm going to jail. If you had 2, okay, so the dream, 2 prune Danishes and 4 violet pawns. This is post Almond Crisp, where you can actually get 4 violet pawns. All of a sudden, you can play each prune Danish 5 times, which means you can explode a 10-8-8 5 times.
That's gonna be pretty powerful if that ever happens.
All the bunnies are dead. It's over.
It's game over. And then the other thing is, I didn't think this card would get mentioned once, let alone twice in one episode. But here we have Strawberry Fields again. That I suppose that can be turned into a pastry, atomic pastry as well.
That's good. And maybe I'm not. This was what I was referencing when I wasn't sure. I'm guessing a pastry that's been neutralized could probably be considered a non-atomic pastry for Bunny Way. Maybe that's a thing. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Yes, is it neutralizes? If it said neutralizing atomic capabilities, then that'd be for sure. Detonation, we'll have to see.
Right,
That's an interesting.
That's an interesting one. It's not clear because it's the classic problem of thematic text versus mechanical text. So hard to say. I don't think we need it though, honestly. Bunny Way is such a rare case, anyways. Who needs it? Why I'm excited is the mini Danish. I can't wait to explode 2 mini Danishes at full force.
Yeah, that went from feeding 1 unit to killing half the bunnies.
Well, I'm not sure on it. Do we count honey hash browns, the new P card, as a pastry? Probably not, right? Hash browns
I
is
think
a pastry.
my
right?
guess is not. It doesn't feel like a pastry to me.
Right.
But I guess we'll have to get clarification from Chad.
Because I've been thinking about that, and I was looking up things in like cards like I don't know. Maybe this wouldn't count at all. But like day old bread. That
I don't think so.
yeah. But yeah.
Any card that mentions his food.
There we go.
That's spicy. Free cabbage. That's a pastry. It's like
Free cabbage.
is that like the question of is wait, what was I doing? Is a taco a sandwich?
Oh no.
Is that debate? Is cabbage a pastry?
I don't think that's much of a debate.
I hope not, but people debate that orange is a flavor deck, so it can happen. Somebody's going to say it. Called out.
It is interesting that there are two identical honey hash browns. So if there's two, maybe they are pastries.
Maybe. I'm debating on the hash browns. I don't know if I have hash browns, am I actually spending them on this though? Because hash browns are so flexible. With the Danish, it feels really good because Danishes aren't, they're only half as good as the hash browns. So I feel really good playing the Danish.
If you have two hash browns, maybe just go out, buy the brown pawn and call it a day.
Right.
And,
buy 4 brown pawns. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. No one's gonna be suspicious when you're out buying 4 brown pawns.
Ultimate meme. I'd do it. If hash browns count, I'm going quad brown. If assuming I'm not going quad yellow for full absolution combo, but opportunity cost and all that. That's pretty spicy. Also, buying brown pawns prevents your opponent from getting them, so they won't have the reroll on the pastry explosions.
That's true.
It's full combo. Pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited about this one, just within the context of Danishes. If hash browns are included, so be it. If the neutralized pastries included, so be it. But I honestly don't think it's necessary. It's good enough without that. If they're included, it's just a nice technicality. Nice way to get rid of the neutralized pastry. Sure.
Yeah.
Alright. Final card for today. And it's not as spicy of a one, unfortunately. But it's also Pink Circle special. At least I don't think it is. You guys can disagree with me if you so choose. But what it does is I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I haven't seen the Star Trek episode. I'm sorry. Yamaxas. How off was I? Has anyone seen
already reading you their angry tweets?
Has anyone seen the reference? Does anyone know the correct pronunciation? I don't know. I think it's a Deep Space Nine reference because I recognize some of these characters. My family's been watching it, so let's see. So what it does is the player with this card saved may stop all atomic pastry detonations on any of his bunnies. If at any time the player has no bunnies in the bunny circle, Yamaka sauce is discarded. So as long as you have this saved, you are, in big air quotes here, safe from atomic pastries. That's not quite accurate because the ranged effect of the pastry would still work because you're preventing the detonation as opposed to actually withstanding the effect. So there's that. I guess you could be hit by the 4 or the 8, which is maybe relevant. I don't know. Probably not relevant. But what do you think, Mikey?
I mean, this is nice. I like that it's a special. Obviously, it wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't work if it was a run. So obviously, it has to be special. I don't know. It's a good card. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I don't have anything amazing to say about it. It does what it does, and it's good.
What do you think, Jazz?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on the same place. This might be a controversial opinion. I'm not sure, but I'm a pretty big fan of the specials with the pink circle. I like that mechanic that they go away if you don't have a bunny, and I think they're a bit underutilized. I think the way you could say they're underutilized is every single card that's a pink, an aggressive card with a pink circle always has the clause, if at any time the player has no bunnies in the bunny circle, then the card is discarded.
Mm-hmm.
It's never, to me, the pink circle says that, but it's always written on the card, which to me says there's like 5 to 10 cards that have this clause, so we have to sort of mention it every time. But I like it. I honestly think there should be more cards like that. It's a way to have fairly powerful cards that aren't overbearing over the whole game. But sometimes when someone gets a card, say, I don't know, Heavenly Halo, you go, oh, that guy's got Heavenly Halo. Well, this was fun. This guy's just always gonna have a bunny now. So I really do like these cards where if the player has no bunnies, they're gone. They're gotten rid of. And I think it in a lot of ways changes how people play with them. It forces them to use the mechanic or play a little bit protectionist with the mechanic. So I'm a fan. I think if this card was just a regular special with no pink circle clause, I think it would be a lot more powerful. And I'm a fan of the addition of the pink circle. And I'm glad that we're getting 2 specials with pink circles in this deck. Hopefully that means there's more to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm also a fan of the pink circle special mechanic. But like you said, it's normally used to, I guess, nerf or balance a big scary card like Fruit-Seeking Neutrons, or even the Minilith. The Minilith's kind of like the midpoint there. I don't actually consider the Minilith that to be that amazing. Hot take. Someone's gonna get mad at me for that statement. But cards like Double Decker Bus from London. Oh look, a good London card. Wow, that's rare. It balances those really nicely. This one, I'm not seeing it. I understand what it does, and it is useful, but I don't picture it being that helpful. Maybe in a freight train context where when you're playing freight train, you want to remove every out possible so you have all your defense cards, you have all your save danishes, so you're immune to feeds, you're immune to weapons. I guess atomic pastures are one of the more difficult things to remove or to prevent, so this does prevent that, so it's nice in that context, I guess. But you could just as easily buy a brown pawn and then you're already solved the problem because it's going to be a 5/4/4. There's no way someone's getting a 10/8/8 on you unless they have Fruit-Seeking Neutrons, in which case just kill their bunnies. Problem solved. I'm oversimplifying there, but you can see what I'm getting at, where every once in a while with the pink circle specials, we get some irrelevant one. What's the one that interacts with senators? Does anyone know the name? Campaign contributions. That's what it is. I didn't look it up. I thought of it on the top of my head. Haha. I'm on point this episode. Haha. Does anyone know what that one does? I know what it does.
I think you're gonna have to remind.
This is a test for all the listeners. Put it in the comments right now if you know what campaign contributions does without looking it up. All right, your time's up. I'm pretty sure that it controls one of the senator parties. So you either get to control the Winder votes or the Shiner votes, and that's its effect. How often are senators relevant? They're not. The very rare case they are, you're not going to have this card saved. In the very rare case where you have it saved, okay, sure, whatever. You get to control one side of the voting. I guess that works. Okay. One side of the voting does control the card, though. That's enough to control it, right? Because you just pick the bigger side, so it doesn't actually matter that it controls one side, I guess. But whatever. It's a card. I don't think this card, Yamaksas, is that bad. It has its place. I don't think it's a good card. It's definitely in the lower tier, but it wants to support the higher tier strategies. That's the problem here. Is it's a D or C tier card, which should place it in neutral, but the strategy I envision it being relevant is Freight Train Aggressive, which is very much looking for S and A tier cards. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's nice if you got nothing better to do. It's one of those cards that you should save if you got nothing better to do if you're playing Freight Train, because you're playing like 4 cards a turn with that strategy, and your opponents won't have that many bunnies to kill, so you spend one of your turns saving your Moxas because you can, and maybe it will be relevant that one game. Kind of like Doggo Bunny, maybe will be relevant. The actual effect of Doggo Bunny is of course relevant because he's a bunny in himself, but imagine if he wasn't. It might be relevant. Imagine if Doggo Bunny was a pink circle special. That's how I view this card. that sort of, yeah, it might do something, and yeah, I'm going to save it, but when I draw this card, I'm not happy. I'm not ecstatic that yes, my strategy has finally come together. I can finally counter those atomic pastries that would come against me. If they're there, they've probably been played already because I'm playing Freight Train in the situation. They've already played them. They've already tried to stop my Freight Train and hopefully failed. It's already too late. By the time I have enough bunnies to support this, the pastries have already been played. And by the time I have all the bunnies to support this, I'm drawing and playing more cards than my opponents, which means I'm getting more pastries than my opponents, meaning that they don't have pastries, meaning this card doesn't matter. So it doesn't actually matter in that context, but it might. I don't know. I'm much more excited about Fruit Seeking Neutrons. This one's no, I'm not saying it. I'm going to waste this on turn 1. Easy waste for me.
No, I agree. It's the less spicy of the two.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the other one's very spicy.
Spicy as they come.
Just because of P cards. As long as it works with P cards, which it should, outside of further clarification, outside the bit say no. At which point, if there's further clarification, we'll question it according to the bits. It's extra spicy. As long as that works, that's a nice card. I'm happy about that one. All right, I like fun cards. The Yamok Sauce, it's one of those cards that has to be there, but you're not excited about. You're not buying Cake Batter because of Yamok Sauce. You're buying Cake Batter because of Path to Perfection. All right. Well, that was the last card for today.
There we go.
And the last card for London. London, Cake Batter, London. What? That was last year. Excuse me. How dare I compare Cake Batter to London? Oh no. I'm definitely in trouble now. Last card of Cake Batter. We can say that it's the last card of London in the sense that the flavor decks complete the theme decks. So, there. I saved. Definitely what I meant by that. Definitely not just misspeaking. I mean, it completes the Undergrounds, so maybe they're relevant. No. We went over that. But yeah, we haven't gone out of our way to discuss Brown Pawn. We discussed it with the P card. That's enough discussion, honestly. We haven't gone out of our
discussion as you still get.
Right. We haven't gone out of our way to also discuss the previously printed cards from London and Creature Feature that now reference Atomic Pastries. Not much to talk about there either. Go ahead and look them up in the QCC if you're curious. I don't think we'll be dedicating an episode to it. But yeah, so in other words, we're done with Cake Bear. We're just waiting for release, which should be, I'm thinking late May, early June is what my prediction. As of right now, as of recording this, I'm recording this at the end of March for reference. This episode's coming out at the beginning of April, so we're a month away. Very exciting. Let's hope.
Can't wait.
You know, I'm getting flashbacks to when I said we were a month away from London, and then it ended up being half a year. But Cake Batter has arrived from the producers. It's on the boat. I think last I heard. So it's here.
It better not be on that boat that's stuck sideways in the Suez Canal.
Oh no, I hope not. That would be a disaster. So
That boat's full of cake batter. All the containers.
yeah, that would be bad. So yeah, and then so I always like these reveal seasons. The next one isn't until the end of the year with Almond Crisp and radioactive robots. So that's what we have to look forward to. Jeff showed a sneak peek of robots on the Zoom call, and they're looking spicy. But we're not talking about those for half a year. So, all right. Thank you, Jazz, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Your professional tournament insight was very, very well welcomed.
Just what everyone's looking for.
All right. Anything else to say, Mikey?
No, just everybody have a good rest of your day, and Jeff bless.
Jeff bless.
Jeff bless.